Okay, welcome everyone, both in person and remotely, and Jonathan, of course. And I'm going to begin by reading the house rules. Normally we project them, but we had a bit of trouble getting everything set up on the two ends. So we're not going to, I'm going to just read to you. Okay, so the house rules are that closed captioning is available through live auto transcription, and to enable captions, kind of everybody probably knows this by now, you click the CC button located at the bottom of the screen. Then the question period is going to be conducted using the hand raising function. Those of you who are here, you know how to do that, right? Just put your hand up. Okay, those of you who are joining us remotely, if you would like to ask your question aloud, then to click ask a question, use the raise hand button located at the bottom of the screen. Okay, however, if you cannot or prefer not to unmute, please use the Q&A function to type in your question. In that case, an unmute confirmation prompt should pop up on your screen. You need to agree to be unmuted before you begin speaking, and you'll then be asked to rejoin as a panelist. If you have any technical questions, send the question through chat. Okay. Now I will say that the Department of Linguistics welcomes everyone, and we recognize the University of Michigan's origin and a land grant from the Anishinaabe, including Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi and Wendat. The university continues to exist on the historical territorial land of the Anishinaabe people. Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi are collectively called the Anishinaabe-Moan and belong to the Algonquian language family. There are currently 12 recognized Anishinaabe tribes in the state of Michigan, and many Anishinaabe groups living throughout the state and interacting at the University of Michigan. Okay, so I know every colloquium begins with, it is a pleasure, okay, to introduce, but it really is a pleasure to introduce Dr. Jonathan Harrington. So Dr. Harrington is professor of phonetics and digital speech processing. He's also director of the Institute for Phonetics and Speech Processing at the University of Munich. So I'm going to start on a personal note. Hope you don't mind, Jonathan.
No.
I think I first met Jonathan at the, I think I'm right on this. I believe I first met you at the International Congress of Phonetic Sciences at Saarbrücken in 2007. And at that time, he was presenting what was really a fascinating study in the production and perception of sound change and progress in Southern British English. That study appeared soon after, I think in 2008, in the Journal of the Acoustical Society of America. It's since been cited many hundreds of times. So in the subsequent years, Professor Harrington has gone on to make many, many other distinguished contributions to the study of sound change. He approaches sound change by studying the transmission of speech between speaker and listener as an inherently dynamic activity. It's a dynamic activity which he has shown leads to change not only within speech communities, but also within individuals in their adult lives. So I know that many of you in this room are familiar because I've told you about this study. You're familiar with the work that he has done on the phonetic flexibility of a especially well-known individual, the Queen of England, in a study that appeared in Nature on whether the Queen actually speaks the Queen's English. Okay, more recently, Professor Harrington has become a leading figure in the use of agent-based computational models to simulate the cognitive and social aspects of change. Okay. So although sound change, which is what you're going to be hearing about today, is perhaps the primary avenue of Professor Harrington's work, he is more generally a distinguished, really renowned laboratory phonologist who has made important contributions to understanding of the dynamics of speech. So I am delighted to introduce him, and he will be speaking to us on phonologization, nasalization, and sound change, an MRI analysis of two varieties of English. Take it away, Jonathan.
Thank you very much indeed, Pam, for that really lovely introduction. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll get going. I'll just put that down here and then we'll get started. So yes, that's my title, and these also are my co-authors here. And it is research as well, which has been done in collaboration with Jens Frahm of the Max Planck Institute for Multidisciplinary Sciences in Göttingen, and that's also where we have obtained our recordings from. So what we're interested in here is the relationship between phonetic variation, cognitive modeling, and sound change, so that it is very well known indeed, of course, that everyday speech is variable. And so this is, I think, a nice example, which is that a word like warmth can be perceived with a P or without a P. And so the question is then, how then is this variation here linked then to permanent sound change? So if you think, for example, of a surname such as Thompson with a P, then obviously then that derives from the son of Tom, and not then from the son of Tomp. And so the question is then, how then does this variation here lead to this kind of sound change? And then we can also, for example, see the changes, for example, from old English amtig into empty with a P, or the relationship between Italian camera and French chambre with a B. So that's the sort of thing which we are interested in here. I won't be talking about this kind of sound change, but I just think that this is a very nice example, though, to set the scene. And what instead we shall be discussing then is coarticulatory vowel nasalization in VN sequences. And so this is an MRI recording from of the words punter, then from our database of German. And so you can see here then, this is the degree of velum opening here. This then is the acoustic boundary between the vowel and the N, between A and N. And so you can see here then that the velum then is maximally open then at around about this boundary here, but it then also extends into the vowel, even actually into the aspiration section, and even into the beginning of the P closure. So we should be looking at lots of these trajectories here. This is actually an MRI recording, and this is the acoustic speech signal here, and you can see that it's of a reasonable quality as well. because you can see here that it's voiced here and here. Okay, so there have been lots of studies on anticipatory co-articulatory vowel nasalization, and various studies have shown then that it varies by speaker, that it varies by listener as well. So the way in which listeners process co-articulation varies. That there is also variation from one language to the next, that it varies by dialect. It's also, of course, well known that the degree of co-articulatory vowel nasalization varies with vowel height and with vowel length. And Pam, of course, has done lots of studies to show that it varies as well, and by stop voicing. Prosody also has an influence on it, as well as do lexical factors. So that's just some background there. And what actually we are interested then here is the progression of sound change in the N sequences. And so we can see that, for example, here, if we compare Latin sonus, or of course, Italian suono, with French and Portuguese son. So there is a nasal vowel here, and of course there is no final nasal consonant. So the change then from this to this would suggest then that there's a progression where VN becomes a nasalized V and N, where this N then is lenited, and till then we actually just have a nasal vowel. Now this is actually just one of the paths of sound change from this to this, but there are others as well, so that in actually some Italian varieties, we start out with Latin vino, and then we have vin, then we have vin with a nasalized E, and then the N is lost, and then there's this lowering of the vowel from E to A to a nasalized A, and then there's the inclusion then of a velar nasal stop, and then there's a denasalization of the vowel. So we're kind of back to where we started, and it's the same kind of thing as well in some varieties of Chinese, which we're actually looking at here. So this is then what we would like to understand, and we wish then to use evidence from synchronic data to do so. So what we actually want to do then is to link co-articulation and sound change, which we can do then if we can work out what the mapping is between two sets of synchronic data which are positioned at different points on the diachronic path of sound change. And of course, this has actually been a major concern at Michigan, as you all very well know. So Pam and colleagues then have done this then by comparing send and sent on the assumption then that words like sent and bent and so on have progressed further than along this path of sound change than send. And so if we can work out then in the production of speech or in the perception of speech what the salient differences are between sent and send, well then of course we will have understood something then about the path of sound change. And so what I shall be talking about here is the same kind of thing, except though rather than using sent and send, I shall make use of British English, so the standard accent of England then, which is the variety which I speak, as opposed to American English, on the assumption then, and of course this is an assumption here that American English has progressed then further along the path of sound change than British English has. So what's the basis then for this assumption? And it is here, so that if we look, for example, at the deletion of N in sent, or the change of vowel quality of at to e in words like pan, then neither of these have taken hold in British English, whereas they have though in American English. And so I think this is evidence then that American English has progressed then further along the sound change path than British English has. So starting out with that, then let's actually look in some detail then at the model of sound change that links nasalization with the sound change in N. And so here then there are two important findings. And first of all, then, that there is a more vowel nasalization, and it's a shorter N in sent than in send. And then independently of these findings, it has also been shown that sound change is more likely then in N T words than in N D words. And so these kinds of changes then have been modeled as an earlier phasing of a stable velum gesture. So let's actually look at this then in some further detail. This then is a schematic of the velum and tongue dorsum then in Pam's model, so that this then is the duration of an articulatory gesture, then here then for the velum, and then here then for the tongue dorsum. And so the main differences between send and sent is that the velum is argued then to be timed earlier in sent than in send. And on the assumption then that the velum gesture is stable, i.e. then of a constant articulatory duration, what this means then is that as the velum and tongue dorsum overlap then with each other more and more, that the degree of anticipatory vowel nasalization of the e increases here as the duration of the N decreases. And so then there is a reciprocal relationship between the two, so that the more than that the overlap is, the greater than the duration of the nasalized e, and the shorter than the duration of the N. So that's then this model here. And so what we are interested in here is whether then this model works then if we compare British and American English in the same word, so that then if we compare then these varieties, for example, on a word like Ben. Now, we're also interested in what happens then to the oral gesture of the N, i.e. then of the tongue tip in here then of the N of Ben. So that in this model then, where we start out then with a VN, which is where we then have a nasalized vowel and an N. This actually says then that the tongue tip should shorten and lanite then as the velum gesture slides to the left, i.e. earlier in time, and that's actually what we'll be looking at here. So this is then the model which we wish to test. So it's the relationship then between the velum and tongue tip then in these varieties here. And so then the issue then is, as the velum then is the tip of the tongue then more lenited, and is it shorter than in the American English version of here than Ben than the British English version? So that's what we want then here to test. So let's then plunge into this study then. This is actually where we had 27 speakers of British English, 16 then of American English. And these actually were then from the same accent. These actually had a variation then from Midland and from Northeast and from Southern and West. And of course, this is because we had to take then what we could find in Göttingen, and so that's the comparison here which we will be making. These then were the materials. So we had 47 real word monosyllables, which were then of the form CVN D or a Z, where the initial consonant was any of B, P, or F, rarely then S. And then so we had triplets like, for example, band, band, and bands, feign, feigned, and feigns, and so on. Each of these words was repeated just once per speaker, so that we then had over 2,000 tokens then from 47 word types and 43 speakers. This is the setup here. This actually shows then the MRI scanner in Göttingen. So this is the subject here. We actually had the monitor, which was in front of the scanner. And the way that this worked is that this is actually where the word list was. It was reflected then onto one mirror here, where of course then the words are back to front. And so it was then re-reflected here, which this is this schematic here, which was drawn by Conceição. And so it was reflected here. And so, of course, then the words then are the right way around. This then was the frame rate, and we made use then of a fiber optic microphone as well. This is the sort of images which we get out then. This is actually from our database of German. This is for bis bunte erklärt. I'll just play that here. And if we go back, if I can get this Zoom window out the way, just a second. So if we move back to the words bunte, and if you now watch the velum here, okay, so here then, whoops, here then we're in the B. I wanted to show you, this is the B, this is the U, and you can actually see then that at the transition then from the B to the U, you can begin to see the velum lowering there. Can you see that? And it's now, if you look up here, and so it's now lowered then in the U. Sorry, I can't quite get full control of my mouse because I've got other windows in the way. Try that just once more. Right, in the U, there's the tongue moving, there's the velum moving, and now then, of course, we have a lowered velum then in the N. And so these then are the sorts of signals which we get out. The way in which we obtain those then is with the application of PCA then to a region of interest shown here. And so since there is actually more or less just one degree of freedom, this actually works out fairly well, so that we actually have then a high PC score here and a lower one there. With the tongue tip height, then we calculate then the mean pixel in intensity per grid line, and it is then averaged over the first three here. Okay, so let's now look at some parameters here. So this then is a trajectory. This is a real one then of a velum signal. This then is the acoustic boundary between the vowel and the N. These here are the points of and peak, velum, opening and closing velocity. And so what we did here then was to parameterize this then by working out then where the peak is, and subtracting from that then the time of the acoustic VM boundary, and then we just normalize that then by the articulatory duration. This then is the ratio then of the area under the curve in the n part of the signal then to the vowel part. So the prediction is then that if in American English, then the velum trajectory is early aligned, then this should be less, so you can see here, of course, this actually has a positive value here, whereas it has a negative value here, so that then this should be less than for American English than for British English, as actually should then this parameter 2. And so that's then what we tested, and indeed this is what we found. So that this is then for A, for A, and E. Red then is for British English, blue then is for American English, and you can actually see then that on these parameters here, that British English is bigger than American English in both cases. So this actually means then it confirms then, of course, that vowels then are more nasalized in American English. Then we wanted to see then if the velum gesture was stable or not between these two varieties here, so that we measured then the peak velum displacement and the peak velum opening velocity and the articulatory duration as well. And so the prediction is that if the velum gesture is stable between these two varieties, then they shouldn't differ then on 1, 2, or 3. And in fact, that's exactly what we found, so that we have then here then we have British English in red, American English in blue. And I think what you see here is that the main difference then between these two varieties is that the velum signal is earlier phased then in American English. Okay, so let's now move then on to the tongue tip gesture here. And so here then the prediction is then that we expected then more lenition in American English, and we tested that then with these three parameters here, which is the degree then of tongue tip displacement, the peak tongue tip velocity, and the articulatory duration then of the tongue tip. We actually just did this for a, I, and I, because of the quality differences in A between these two varieties here when it is nasalized, because it is actually more like I in American English than it is in British English. And we also left out A because it is actually hard to separate out what the contribution is of the tongue dorsum and tongue tip. What we actually found then was that the peak tongue tip displacement then and the peak tongue tip velocity were greater than for British English than they are for American English, but that that 1 and 3 are bigger, but that the peak tongue tip velocity was about the same. And so this then means that that in American English, that the tongue tip gesture is shorter and it is smaller, but it's not slower. Okay, and that's an important finding which we shall need soon. Then the next thing was to test then for Q trading. So before we actually do that, this is the summary then so far, which is then that it looks as if then there's an earlier alignment then of the velum gesture in American English, and that there is a reduction then of the tongue tip. And so this is then concerned with how then are these connected? Is it actually the case then that if the velum gesture slides forward in time is then that associated then with a reduction of the tongue tip. And the answer is then that yes, it is, so that within each of the dialects, that an early alignment then of the velum predicts then tongue tip lenition. This difference here, which you can see here, is of course because of this supposed earlier phasing then of the velum in American English. So there is then Q trading. So far, so good. So this is a summary then so far, which is that it looks as if then that there's an earlier alignment then of the velum in American English, that there is also tongue tip reduction, and that these then are linked up. But what this actually also then predicts is that there should be an increasing asynchrony between the velum and the tongue tip as the velum slides to the left, which would actually, of course, then leave the tongue tip, as it were, stranded. Now, since actually all of the results have worked out actually fairly well so far, following our predictions, I actually fully expected this to be the case. So is this, i.e. the prediction is then, is the asynchrony greater than in American English than it is in British English? And as I said, I was expecting it to be so. This was the very, very last part of the study, and I went through this over the weekend, and I thought that's fine. We'll just wrap it up now. And in fact, the answer is no. And then I thought, oh my goodness, I've actually done, or we've miscalculated all of the things which I've been telling you about so far have been wrong, and there's some kind of error in our R code. It was one of those awful weekends. I thought, why isn't this working out? So then we looked actually in some further detail then at the displacement then of the tongue tip, synchronized now at the maximum point of velum lowering. So that's actually here the time 0. So red then is British English, blue is American English, and so you can see here then that the American English version is reduced then in all cases, so that's actually fairly clear. The vertical lines then here, the solid ones then, these then are the times of the tongue tip peak velocity. And it, in fact, so turns out that these are very, very closely matched then to the acoustic times between the V and the N. So that's actually here the dotted lines. So what you see then here is that the degree of tongue tip lenition is greater for American English, and the time of the tongue tip peak velocity, i.e. the acoustic boundary time between the V and the N, is also closer then to the maximum point of peak velum lowering. That's actually what these data show. So let's now summarize what that actually means, because what that in fact means is that in American versus British English, it's not actually the case then that the velum gesture moves to the left. It is instead that the VN boundary moves to the right as a consequence of tongue tip lenition. So then here is a schematic then of these findings so far. This then is the trajectory then of the degree of velum opening, and it's the same trajectory then for both the varieties, because of course that we actually showed that in this in our earlier finding. This then is the tongue tip for British English, which is less reduced then than for American English. These then are the acoustic boundary times between the V and the N, or of course then the tongue tip peak velocity times. So this reduces then, and at the same time it draws this boundary to the right, so that it looks then as if the velum gesture has moved, as it were, to the left, because of course the duration between the VN boundary time and this peak is less for American English, and so it actually gives the illusion then that this has actually shifted to the left when it hasn't. Okay, so that then in conclusion, this is then the last slide. So what actually drives then this VN to nasalized V sound change? So I would argue then that it's the mission then of the oral gesture in the N, both vertically then through tongue tip lenition, and then also horizontally because of this increasing in encroachment then of the V on the N. So it is then, because of one, that it is the integrity then, or if you like, the segment hood of N as plus coronal plus nasal is dismantled, because the reduction then targets the coronal part, but it actually leaves the nasal part intact, so that Q reweighting and trade-off then is a gradual and an inevitable consequence of tongue tip reduction, and that then in this Linguistics model, the tongue tip gesture then in N isn't stranded then by a moving velum gesture, because the velum doesn't actually move. Yeah. Okay, that's it. So thank you very much indeed for listening.
This is on, right? Okay. Thank you very much, Jonathan. So we're going to take questions, and we're going to sort of alternate questions between people in the audience here versus virtual audience. I'm going to not go with all of my questions right away, but it was fascinating. Thank you. So we'll start with the audience. Rory? But Rory, I think what we're going to do is you're going to talk into so that Jonathan can see you.
Okay. Okay. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much. This was really, really interesting. I wanted to, so you first of all drew this parallel between what we see in terms of a voiced-voiceless distinction, a contextual distinction, and the dialectal distinction, and that they're both, you know, at these points on this trajectory of sound change, and maybe there's they're equivalent in this way. But there are, of course, you know, proposed aerodynamic and functional reasons that we might think the velum gesture in particular would be moving when you're thinking about a voiced-voiceless distinction, where you want the velum gesture to come earlier to give it distance from this voiceless. You don't want any nasal leakage there, and you know, you want to be able to build up pressure in order to release it in this voiceless context. Does that mean then, when you're thinking about that reason, and also, you know, we have some data that maybe suggests that there is earlier velum gesture specifically for that contrast. Does that mean that maybe you want to, after investigation, decouple these two things, the dialectal contrast versus the contextual one, which at first seemed to be parallel, but maybe there are two different processes going on?
Well, thank you very much indeed for that point. You're absolutely right, of course, that what is happening, I mean, when we compare British English with American English, may actually be very, very different indeed from the NT versus ND sound change. For, of course, all of the reasons which you say. So the issue then, I guess, here is, first of all, which of these then is sort of more representative of the sound change itself? It's not easy to answer that, but then I guess we can also then ask, is it really then the case then that the difference between NT and ND is in fact that different then from what we have seen so far then in comparing the two varieties. I do have some data on that. If you want me to quickly show you, I can, because yes or no, I don't know, because it will take a few minutes, that's all. I mean, if you would like to see some preliminary findings which we have on this NT versus ND, this is actually still very much work in progress. I don't know, it's up to you. I mean, I can show
personally
that
would
to
love
you
to
if you
see
wish.
it, but I don't want to
Well, I'll leave that up
monopolize.
to the so it would just take a couple of minutes. I mean, it would take, you know, a couple of minutes, but I mean, if you would like to see it, then I mean, I can certainly show
Sure,
it now or later on.
That's going to, what I was going to say is, since got a group meeting later too, let me just see what kind of other questions we have.
Sure. Yeah.
I would love to see it. Needless to say,
Yeah.
so would Rory. Do we have other questions from within here first? Do we have questions? Okay, so. It's a little clunky.
This is the whole thing. Well, hello. I think I had a question. I don't know a whole lot about this. But I guess in terms of the stimuli, you had a couple different, and I from what I kind of gathered, it seemed like it's sort of it was a set of stimuli that have been used before, that have been used in the past. I guess I'm wondering, with regards to the tongue tip question, I guess just intuitively, I would wonder whether the tongue tip also would be quite different depending on the different stimuli. So like bend versus bent, like there would sort of be a kind of anticipatory movement of the tongue tip for the T as well, like when you add a T to the end or when you add a D.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just curious about that. And then when you have like all of those alveolars, like bends versus, you know, bend. Wait, I don't know. But when you have like multiple alveolars, I would almost assume that the tongue tip was going to be very different for something like that versus, I don't know, across the different stimuli. I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair question. So let's just see. I mean, I can show you what we've got. I mean, this was this data which we had on the tongue tip, which was in one of these slides here. So you can see, for example, then this is the tongue tip movement here. So this is in, for example, this is in bun, this is in bend, this is in bin. Okay, and this then is in bend. So you can see that, yes, indeed, when you look at bend or sorry, not bend, this is, what is this? Bund. Well, let's actually look at buns. It's a word I know. Bund is not a word I know anyway. Or if we look, for example, at bend, bend, and bends. Okay. Oh, right. This was actually with an F. This was not bund, but fund. But anyway, this is bend. This is bend, for example. This is bend. So you can see here, well, that there's a bit more of a tongue tip target, isn't there, for the bend and for the bends? You can see that here than there is for the bend. So yes, I mean, you're absolutely right. You can see here that this is just that little bit more concave, isn't it, in, for example, this as opposed to this. So there are differences, I mean, from N to ND to NZ, and they may be even more marked, of course, from ND-NZ to NT. But the most important thing, as far as we're concerned with here, is that the blue trajectory for American English is in all cases less than it is for British English. So the next thing which I should really test is whether that is also the case when you have oral words, right? So that is it then the case that you have, for example, more tongue tip lenition in American English bat and bad than in British English. And I would expect that that isn't the case because it's not involved in this kind of sound change. The only thing parenthetically in there, which I will note, is of course that there is that the American English TD intervocalically, there is of course this neutralization in writer as opposed to rider and so on, but I don't think that that is relevant here. Does that sort of answer at least part of your question?
Yeah. No, that definitely does. Yeah, that's a really nice visual. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Martin?
Hi, Jonathan. Thank you very
Hello.
much. Very interesting talk. I was just curious whether there's something going on with vowel length that may explain what's happening with the tongue tip velocity. So if the potentially longer vowels in American English explain why the tongue tip is delayed or lenited in the way it is.
Well, yeah, it might be the other way around though, okay, which is that, of course, if the tongue tip lenites and if the peak velocity of tongue tip raising shifts then to the right, then that will make the vowel longer in American English than it is in British English, and that's exactly what I did test, and indeed that is the case. So I would actually see it that way round, that it's the lenition then of the tongue tip in these N, ND, N, Z words, which is driving then the increased vowel length. Yeah.
And I have a greedy second question about
Of course, yeah.
the release of T and D in American English and whether them being unreleased so often is because of this later onset.
Yeah, I know nothing about that at all, and it's not something which we've looked at in this data. I don't know whether the release of the D, of the D or the Z in American English is any different in British English. It may well be. It's just not something which I've looked at so far. So thank you anyway for suggesting that, and it is something then which I will test.
Thank you.
Do we have online questions? Not yet. Okay. So Jonathan, this is Pam. I don't think we'll have to pull so I just have given the slide that you have up now. So one of the things I'm not sure of okay. Guess I'm supposed to talk to the screen. Okay. One of the things I'm not quite sure of in the timing is, does when you go to the 200 milliseconds to the right end of things, does that include the entire Z and D, for example?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No. So that what we have done here is basically we have just started then at the peak velum lowering, and we've just said we will look then over this time interval here, but you can see that on the whole it sort of ends about here, because this is actually very rough and bumpy indeed, which is of course because there are just one or two signals which actually have this duration here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason I'm asking is I find this, so what you have on the top with just the N, that makes a lot of sense to me. You can imagine the N leniting, right?
Yeah.
But because there's no final consonant, but when you have the final D or the Z,
Yeah.
I find, so that means the D and the Z are also lenited.
I guess it
in
does.
American English, yeah.
I guess it may well do, yes. Well, wait a minute, we're in the, well, yes, I suppose it might do. So if we extend it for 200 milliseconds then to the right, this is peak velum opening, extending for 200 milliseconds is probably going to include, yes, the N and the D closure. So yeah, so they're not, yes. It looks that way. So that's the bit that you find suspicious. Is that right?
I'm surprised. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Maybe suspicious, but I would say surprised rather than suspicious at this point.
Okay. So and I think that's a very fair point, Pam. What we don't have with these data is where the acoustic segmentation is between the N and the D. Do we? Oh, we actually do have that. I'm just being told that we do have that. Oh, good. Okay, so we do have that, so that that is actually something which we can check. It is actually something we can check. Yeah. And we should check that, yes, because because this would suggest then that we've got lenition as well of the D as well as of the N. With this line-up point at 0. So I can't say at the moment, Pam, any more to you than that, but I think it's a very fair question, and I think it's also something that we should check. Yeah. I suppose it's related, isn't it, to my earlier point as well about whether the oral post-vocalic D in, for example, bad is more lenited than it is in British English, and I was suggesting that it's not, and so then it's, I think, a very fair question then as to what's actually happening then with the D and the Z here. Yeah, I mean, it could well be that there's just a bigger perseverative coarticulatory influence, I suppose, from the vowel from left to right, that there is a sort of lenition of the whole ND, NZ gesture. But yeah, I won't speculate further here, Pam, until I've looked at the data, but that is actually something which we'll do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Rory?
I guess jumping off from that, and maybe this is more just a clarification about measurement. But talking about degree of lenition could be tricky here because these are relative, right? It's about displacement regardless of starting point. Is that right?
Not Right. So these are actually these these are relative to the start of the tongue tip gesture, which is positioned at 0. Okay, in the for that, right, so that it is actually normalized so that each speaker's tongue tip gesture onset is at 0.
Right. So I guess my thought here is that there's lenition happening insofar as the gestures are smaller, but not necessarily insofar as they reach a different point. I mean, there's this biomechanical constraint where they're making a constriction, right? And to that extent, I'm basically saying I don't know that the effect in D, for example, is problematic because it's in line with what the N is doing. It's not necessarily you wouldn't expect a big difference between the N and the D in this one cornal gesture. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say, we could be seeing the locus of the effect is actually where speakers are starting, not necessarily where they're ending up with their tongue tips.
Okay. Yeah. It could well be, couldn't it? I mean, so that it could be that the lenition is actually at the beginning of the tongue tip gesture. I think that's what you're suggesting, isn't it? So wow. I guess that is suggesting then that there is an overall lenition of the tongue tip gesture from the beginning through to the end in American English in relation to British English, which may be consistent with these data. It may not be. However, I mean, if you look, for example, here at this point, I mean, of course, these are just averages, and I've not actually done any statistics at this point here, but I mean, these look fairly similar, don't they? Here and here at the start as well. And here, yeah, but here though there is a bigger difference for so yeah, I mean, you may well be right. It is an overall lenition then of the tongue tip gesture from the beginning through to the end. So so that it's not necessarily the cases. I think this is what you're suggesting, that the lenition is just at this point here, but it's actually through the gesture itself.
Yeah, which I don't think is a problem, because we don't need speakers to be making this decision. We don't need them to be doing this online about what direction I should move my tongue in. They know, presumably on some level, how much time they've allotted to make this gesture, and so they can preemptively position their starting place. And I think that's fine. That still is lenition, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for the point.
Other comments or questions? Dominique.
Also, apologies to anybody who's in the room with Dr. Harrington, because you're probably getting motion sick with all the camera stuff.
No, it's okay. We're
sorry about that. My question is, I was wondering if you think that the fact that there are so many different varieties of American English, like how would that sort of affect?
I didn't quite catch the last bit, but I think you were asking if there is any influence here on American English varieties, right? Because of course we have this mixture. Yes.
Yeah, since you said that all the British English speakers used the same variety, or like Southern British English. But I think like, especially saying like Southern American English, I think a lot of people would mark that as like a lot different from even the comparison between like Midwestern and West Coast English. So
you're absolutely right about that, of course. And this was Conceição just wants to show some data on this. I don't think you're going to find it, because actually she analyzed this, okay, which was actually to check. It's not in my email box. Never mind, Conceição. But the point is, though, that of course, as you rightly say, there actually is, of course, variation in the tongue tip height, for example. I mean, between these varieties, which was also shown by Jeff Mielke, of course, in his 2017 paper in JASA. Conceição actually did analyze these data for the varieties that we have, and on the parameters which we have investigated here, she showed that I don't know if you can see that because she can't send it to me, but that there is actually it's very hard to see, I know, but anyway, that you have to send it to me by email and we'll look at it in the discussion time. But that there is very little difference as far as these parameters are concerned, which we have analyzed here between these varieties. Now, of course, this may well be that we have very, very few speakers in these four regions. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that and it is actually something which I've thought of. Conceição wants to say something. Do you, or?
Yeah, I could say. Yeah, for example, if I have in front of me the proportional alignment of peak volume lowering, this was one of the first plots you have seen, and you see indeed we divided the American speakers in 4 groups, as you saw in the presentation, and we find differences between these groups, but all the groups are below, for example, the level of British English.
Okay.
So you see that every single group, for all 5 vowels that you have analyzed, because for this measurement we use the 5, you see that everyone is distinct from British English. So this is something we can send you around maybe later, because yeah, we didn't put it in the presentation, but yeah. But yeah,
No,
there are,
thank you.
we find variation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Does that help answer your question? Yeah.
John, you're coming.